Seth Swanson, it's great to meet, and it's great to have you on the Single Track podcast.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And nice to meet you as well.
I was telling you offline, I want to talk ultra running history for a second. I was just looking through your race resume over the years, and I think you logged perhaps the greatest ever Western States-UTMB double back in 2015. So you ran second at Western States, and then you ran fourth at UTMB. You just narrowly missed out on that podium spot. I think it was the David Laney. If you reflect back on that summer of racing and training, what were you doing that summer, and maybe just that year in general, to make success possible at both races? Because a lot of athletes at your level of the sport try to do this. It's typically elusive. They're typically unsuccessful. But you did it. So what was your playbook?
Yeah, well, first off, I mean, I was never been much of a, sports stats fanboy of any sort growing up. I do know this one, and pretty sure that Killian did win both Western and UTMB in the year. And then Timmy Olsen was first, and then I think fourth at UTMB. So those guys definitely secured themselves as, obviously legends, but just to set the record straight. But still, regardless, it's good company.
It's the third best. Sure. It's the third best. At least for an American, it's the second best.
It's pretty decent, yeah. But back to your question, I think, I think things are really just kind of clicking that year. I'm not a heavy racer by any means, never really have been. Probably more so in my earlier years running. I wouldn't say younger because I never really was a young runner. But in 2015, after Western, so I think that year I ran Sean O'Brien and Lake Sonoma, it was all part of that Montreal Ultra Cup, and that was still a thing. We're dating ourselves here, but and then Western, of course. But I think what really helped me was this kind of it's a totally different nut to crack, UTMB from Western, and so I just it was a complete mind shift. And so coming from Western, where training leading into that, just kind of doing a bunch of like faster paced, really runnable terrain, things like that. Just kind of shifted gears to like just heavy hiking, really. And I think that was helpful for, both mental and physical monotony, breaking that up and keeping things interesting and fresh, and going into, dipping into not necessarily new terrain, but just different kind of training grounds. And I mean, my volume was never really that big. I was working, I have a family, and so it's never really that big. And so I think that was really what helped me the most, I guess. But in all honesty, but after that, I was wrecked. I was totally wrecked, as you could imagine. I mean, I can't speak for Tim Olsen, but maybe he was too. But it definitely took a toll. I mean, it's not for the... I mean, those are two really hard races, two very different races, but incredibly challenging. And obviously there's a lot of folks that do it, but I mean, I don't know how Francois did back-to-back Hard Rock UTMB. That's insane.
I know. Well, I'm going to have to go back and analyze the fields in Tim Olsen. Was the year that Tim Olsen did it? It was 2012 or 2013?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe 2013. Again, horrible fanboy.
Well, I feel like
terrible sports fan.
I feel like that race, UTMB in particular, only gets more competitive each year. So if it's not, you guys are neck and neck. But okay, one more bit. Actually, had Mike Foote on the show about 6 or 7 months ago, and he pulled an interesting stat out that Missoula, as a trail town, has the highest number of podium or top 10 finishes among American males compared to any other trail running town in America, like, Marin County area, Salt Lake City, Seattle, you name it. And I guess my question is, what makes Missoula such a great place to train for this race?
First, I'd request Foote to provide some references for that stat. You know, I don't know. That's a tough one because, looking at Missoula, it's really not a great training ground for a race like UTMB and a lot of kind of European races in general. When I first went to Chamonix, it was in 2015, stepped off the plane, metaphorical plane in Chamonix, and just blown away by just the dramatic landscape. I mean, it is just so steep. It's like, holy shit, what did I get myself into, I mean, Missoula has great proximity to just endless trails, like right out of town. I mean, quite literally right out my back door is just miles and miles of trails. It's really fortunate for that. But we don't necessarily have that dramatic relief in topography. And so, I've always thought places in the US like, yeah, maybe in your neck of the woods, where you have much higher, greater sustained climbs or access to those, or places like the North Cascades where not necessarily high elevation, but there's a huge, delta in relief. There's a huge climbs that you can get. And that's kind of that, how would I always kind of envision, that's where, the real training ground is for races like UTMB. But I guess maybe it is just maybe something to just that proximity and just having that easy access where, it can take away other stressors for trying to, put more effort into just getting to a run, Does that make sense? I don't know.
Of course. Well, one last question before we dive into the race at hand. I'm curious because 5, 6, 7 years ago, you were right there, like at the very top of our sport in terms of like the best American male athletes. You were putting up the best finishes in some of the most important races. Where are you at with the sport right now from a competitive standpoint and training standpoint? Like obviously, with the one key difference being that you're older now.
That's true.
how are things different? And because you're still putting up great results. I mean, we'll talk in a second. Like you just finished 7th at TDS last year, and there were some competitive Americans in that race, like Tyler Green. So, yeah, where are you at? Like, how do you think about the sport from like a competitive standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question, right? And it always digs into some, personal reflection, right? It's like, where do you belong? But I mean, quite frankly, yeah, I am older, and I work 60 plus hours a week sometimes, and I have a family that is active, and so there's a lot of other things tugging at the string of energy, and so I try to stay in it for the right reasons, and so I truly still enjoy it. I truly still want to get out there and race and try to run hard. And maybe I won't be as fast as I was, 7, 8 years ago when maybe I was running faster, but that's, that happens. Right. And so, yeah, I think right now, just, I'm not ready to necessarily quit or hang it up. And, there's still, some races I'd still like to get to, and it's getting harder and harder to get to those start lines each year. But yeah, I'm still excited by it. I love the community. And you get to go to have the unique opportunity to go to some pretty amazing places, whether that's through training or, races or what have you. So, yeah. I don't know if that really answers your question, but
no, it does. And actually, I'm curious, given that you have all these other competing responsibilities and opportunities in life, have you been someone that's always gotten by on relatively low volume in training? Like, are you somebody that doesn't need much of a stimulus over the long term to perform at your best?
Well, I mean, that's a difficult question, right? That's just by the nature of things, it's what I've done, just because, dipping too far into, greater volumes, it just, there was, pushback either, physically or, other things would be, at a sacrifice of more hours on the trail, if you will. I mean, this, I do actually like being around my kids and my family. So, so I would typically run, early in the morning. I run, 5 a.m. in the morning so I can get that done before going to work and be able to spend time with the family on the weekends or what have you. And, but it's still, it's demanding. And I've got into running late, so I don't really know what bigger volume is. I think the most I've ever run in a week was probably during a race week when I run 100 miles. But in training, I think I've maybe cracked 100 miles, maybe once or twice. I'm not trying to it's not like a bragging sort of thing. It's just that is my, capacity. And, anymore, it's going to be, counterproductive, if you will. And, maybe even less now, but I try to tell myself that, well, I'm on my feet, at work, maybe, or whatever, like 8 to 10 hours a day. So it's all about time on your feet, right? So maybe I can make up for that.
Let's talk about TDS. At least on paper, and just from my perspective, you had a great race last year. You finished 7th overall. Like I said, there were strong Americans in that field, strong Europeans in that field.
Yeah.
What makes you want to return?
Well, I wanted to go back to UTMB for a while, since 2015. And so I've always had that in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to get back there, and just, there's other things that have come up, and 2016 was a tough year. So I had plans on going back, and just, life happens, and it just didn't work out. And for whatever reason, I just wanted to try something different. So signed up for TDS last year. And I think, coming out of, weird pandemic years, just didn't really know how fit I was or whatnot. It seemed like a better race than UTMB. But at TDS, it was a great race. It was, obviously super, super challenging and difficult. And, of course there was, the Czech runner who lost his life, which was super sad. And, which made it kind of, obviously difficult at the finish line, because there really wasn't, at least for the runner's perspective, necessarily public information till the very end. And so it was bittersweet, when you cross the finish line. It's like, you're really, obviously pumped for yourself and excited and wanted to embrace that. And the whole, everybody, the town is all out there. But, there's this dark cloud of, the true reality of what happened. And so, you just hope that, whoever this person was, that this was truly what they enjoyed. And, that the community of running or ultra running, whatever, can, step up and support, those that were left behind as friends and family. But kind of took a little turn to the left there, but
no, it's fine. What are the motivations for returning?
It's just a really inspiring race to either, spectate or to be a part of. It's the big granddaddy of ultra running, and it's just such an iconic race of, circumnavigating anything is just kind of a cool aesthetic, routes, if you will. And, traveling through 3 different, countries, and, just blown away when I was there in 2015 that you're, cresting a pass in the middle of the night. There's just people out there just cheering. You're like, wow, this is, these people live for this. So cool. And, you even said it yourself, it's more and more competitive. It's gotten more and more competitive every year, which is cool to be a part of. Not necessarily, I may not necessarily be way up to the front, but that's okay. I mean, just to be part of that culture, that experience, and take it in, and just hope that I can piece together a good day for myself that I'm proud of and I enjoy. And And this year I have my entire family out. Well, my wife and kids will be out there. So, yeah, hopefully it's a good experience for them too.
How are you feeling at this point in time compared to this same time last year heading into the race from like a fitness standpoint, mindset standpoint, confidence standpoint?
Yeah, those are, it's all right. I don't mean to laugh. It's, yeah, I'm not, sometimes not the best at like self-reflection.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, that's, the years are fluid, and I don't really feel like there's many years that are the same. And, there's a lot that changes from year to year, but so last year I had started a new job right before the race, maybe, in July of last year. So taking on kind of those, awkward and like just, weird steps of being, new to a new company, a new role, whatever. And it was an added level of stress and feeling the greater obligation to maybe, put more time into work, what have you. That's all gone. Now I just put more time into work. But, I feel good. I feel in a good place. Maybe, not super sharp. I think probably if you ask everyone, most people would probably say they would wish they would have done some more training, or it's always hindsight. But,
yeah,
I feel like I did what I could with, the what I have. And so we'll see. I'm pumped to go. I'm excited to go. So that's a good thing.
Well, I got to say, again, as a fan of the sport, I'm excited to watch your race unfold. I was there last year, had a chance to watch the finish. I think it's a super cool scene. And yeah, this interview has reminded me I probably need to hire some fact checkers, because I've been known to cobble together some outlandish statistics that aren't actually based in reality. But still, needless to say, what you did in 2015 was insane.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Seriously, it's been awesome to have you on the show. Last question I have for you. We have some gearheads in the audience, and I think you're sponsored by North Face. And so what are you wearing for shoes on race day?
So my shoe of choice is the Flight Vective. So that's the trail model with the carbon plate, if that triggers any memories for folks. But yeah, it's a great shoe. I'm really, really excited that, North Face has, been working really hard on piecing together some trail shoes over the years. And this one's really, getting some traction, no pun intended. And I like it a lot. It's great. So it works.
Cool. Well, Seth, awesome to meet. Thanks for doing this interview, and we will be following a couple weeks from now.
Great. Thanks so much, man. Nice to meet you.